Good morning. If you are joining, good morning. Good evening. The day is just starting for us here. So if you're joining us here, you're at the right place, you're at the right time here. You have joined us here with the CARES program. That is Caregivers and Relatives Empowered for Support. And every Monday night, we have the Expert Speaker Series. And what that is every Monday, we bring in a professional who has experience in the field of substance abuse treatment. And what we're looking for are dynamic speakers who share stories. And some of it is professional and some of it is personal. But for our program and what we're trying to build here is a community that helps individuals who are the family members, who are the caregivers, the people who are asking, what's out there for me when I'm taking care of my loved one? And every Monday we have a unique and different answer to help in that space. So I am very happy and honored to be able to welcome Dr. Norma Mercado, who is a professor with Texas State University, is also the executive director of Bastrop County CARES. Yes, CARES, because when you got a good name, you got to run with it, right? So a twin sister, and she is also a social worker, a licensed social worker, an international speaker as well, who's gone global, and has also been the subject of a New York Times editorial for her work in Bastrop and working in rural areas. So it is a privilege to have her here and to have her share the story. So with that, I am dropping my microphone and handing this one here to Dr. Mercado to share her experience and knowledge with us.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me. It is a true honor and pleasure, and I'm just humbled by the opportunity, and also applaud the initiative, because I think it's very much needed. I'm finding that a lot of communities need a space like this to really just talk about what they're going through. So yeah, thank you for all of you.
So, Dr. Mercado, one of the questions that we have in this space is oftentimes family members who are saying, we love our daughter, our son, our dad, our mom, and we will try every program that's out there. But there's not much in terms of community or support for themselves. And in your experience as a professional working in the community, what do you see out there that people are asking for and needing?
I think people are just hungry to find a quick solution. Like if there was, and we were just talking about it this weekend, we had an amazing event and we focus on mental health. And what I was hearing from the mothers and from the community is how hard it is, especially with substance use and mental health. When our children have a fever, you give them Tylenol and they get better. But with substance use and mental health, it's not that easy. And it's very, very painful to go through it. And in a way, you just feel alone as you're going through it. You don't know which program to go, and then it's very costly. And most of the places are not close by. You have to travel far to take so some of the families that we were working with they feel alone, and they feel also embarrassed about talking about it. So in my work before being executive director, I oversaw the highly mobile student population, which is homeless, foster care, and military connected and migrant. And a lot of my students that I was working with experienced substance use. And it was really, really hard to navigate the challenges with them and also see all the doors that were there that we couldn't even access. Unless you were in a crisis, it was almost like you needed them to be in crisis to be able to get help. Because if there was no crisis, then it was going to be 2 to 3 months for them to see. And that was the hardest thing for me to see, was that even if you wanted to do preventative care, it was hard, because in order for you to access services, you had to be in crisis.
So you're a professional working in the field. You know that there is, all the key things that are needed in order to get someone through the door. But for a family member who doesn't see this day to day, and it's their family member and having to navigate through these spaces, what advice do you give to that person who's looking for something to help but doesn't know where to turn to?
So every community has And I think that is why this program is so important, because you often face the traditional help. Like every community has a mental health entity where you can go and they'll do an intake, and then based on how you're doing, they'll give you a plan. But sometimes that takes time. And when you're going through it, you feel like you're alone and you don't know what to do, because the whole time it's like walking in eggshells, because you don't want to get your family member upset or trying to keep them occupied. And so it's just, or worried about what if they leave? Are they going to get in a car accident, or are they going to hurt someone? And so you just feel alone through this process. And there's not a lot of spaces in communities like this where you can just talk to someone who's been through that can really understand and help guide you on what to do.
When you talk about communities, your work in Bastrop is focused in a very rural area. And you could be in a very populated city and feel like you're in a rural space. So how is it in Bastrop, in the spaces you are, how do you connect people when it seems like it's miles away to get the help that you need?
So something that we're currently doing is something very similar that your guys are doing here, is really connecting with the churches, because we find that people are either connected to schools or churches. So we're trying to use especially our historically excluded churches to bring topics to help normalize this topic of substance use and mental health. And also partnering with the local schools who are often in those rural communities to be able to use their spaces to host community conversations like this one.
Have you found that those spaces are welcoming for people who are looking for services like this?
I think they weren't before, but I think they're now more welcoming and opening. The other challenge that we have is sometimes people feeling. We had an event at one church recently, and some people felt uncomfortable in a church because they haven't always felt welcome in a church. So we try to make sure that they know ahead of time what the space is going to look like, and it's not, even though it's in a church, it's not going to be a service, or that way they feel safe. Because there is some people who have disconnected from the faith communities because of past trauma.
So in spaces where you're opening up, I mean, you talked about schools, you talked about churches. These are points where you're trying to bring in people that normally would have never had the conversation around mental health. And when we look at the program for today, your title was Breaking the Silence: Family Voices, Self-Compassion, and Community Healing in the Face of Substance Use. So what's different, unique about what you offer or what you're seeing in terms of how you're building community that we haven't done in the past decade or 2 decades?
We are allowing for the community spaces to be led by people with lived experience, where before it was the professionals. But sometimes the professionals can't connect with people because they've never experienced that. But when you have people with lived experience leading the conversation, sharing their experience similar, like today, it's different, it's accepted different. People can make a connection and relate to the experience, and it helps normalize the feeling. I began interested in this. It wasn't something that I dreamed about. I was actually, growing up, I was very, very shy. I used to dream that I was going to, in my mind, I was going to be in a position where I didn't have to talk to people or be like in the background, because I was very shy about, especially speaking in public or things like that. But through my experience with my brother and my sons, and in my personal experience trying to navigate the different challenges, I began to advocate and learn to use my voice and begin to share my experience. And when I was doing that, I could see other people connect and relate and see that they also appreciated that someone else could share their experience and how they could connect with it. And so because of that, I saw the power of lived experience. And when people can share and tell you how they healed, how they overcame a substance use, it's more powerful than somebody with a degree telling you. Yeah.
So it's interesting as we've had these conversations in terms of what the CARES program is trying to do. I mean, we're starting off with, three key words, three key phrases to describe the essence of what we're doing here. Building a community, educating, and then empowering to provide support. And those three things are very critical. I mean, the community piece is what we're building here, and it's what you're talking about too. You can be in a rural space, but if you can find people who can share their experience with one another. And then there's the education piece. So there's the lived experience that every story is unique, but we connect around that. What about knowledge? What are key things that you think family members need to hear, whether it's the mom or the brother, that they need to hear in terms of how they work with a family member that's in need?
Yes, so that was actually why I decided to go into social work, because I wanted to understand why was it that, what was the reason that my brother was going through the substance use and how we could help them. I wanted to be able to understand, how did this disease work in the mind? And I've learned how it's a cycle, and how it's not that easy for him not to stop drinking. Like for me, it was like, just stop drinking. But when I learned about what it's like for someone who has an addiction, it's a disease. I could finally understand my brother, why he couldn't stop. So it allowed me to empathize with my brother and try to understand the disease and try to help support him the need that for the program that he needed or services. But it also, I also recognize the impact of trauma that has in someone. I learned about the ACEs score and how, and because of our traumatic experience when we were little, I was able to understand what drinking or drugs and how that was helping my brother to cope. So it was important for me. It's important for a loved one to understand sometimes why they're using substances, or the cycle of it, or the addiction, so that you're able to not just say they're doing it on purpose, or they can stop if they want to, or don't you love me? Why don't you stop? It's a disease.
You referenced the ACEs score, and if I remember correctly, that's the adverse childhood experiences, right?
Yes.
So there's a scoring that shows. Well, you tell us.
Yeah. So it's 10. There's 10 questions. And if you experience these traumatic experiences before the age of 18, more than likely you're going to be a substance user. You're going to end up in prison. You're not. So all these negative effects, if you have 4 or more of these negative experiences, more than likely you will use substances and things like that.
So it helps explain that the person that is using substances, it didn't just come out of nowhere. It wasn't just because they felt like it, they don't love their family. There's context. And every behavior, human behavior, there's something to it. And in this case, there are experiences that go back from childhood combined that create a higher risk for someone to use.
Yes.
How do people find their way out of that?
Well, for my brother, it's understanding how you can, that your behavior or the way you treat your children or your family impacts them as adults. And so it kind of changes the way you want to parent. For example, and I want to say and that's what happens with the experts, right? Because they want to say, oh, well, he's drinking and he's using drugs because more than likely he had all this abuse group. But then I learned that wasn't true for my children. And they still, when I was going through that with them, going through substance use and drinking, then it made me realize, well, if the ACEs score for my brother, I understand and can rationalize why he was doing it. But then what about for my sons? Because they grew up in a 2-parent household. They had everything. but they still got into drugs. And so then I began to blame myself. Maybe it was me. Maybe I did something wrong. And so then I also began to question, well, so the ACE score I could justify my brother. And maybe that's it. I was trying to blame someone why they're using drugs or alcohol. Like it's easier to just find, oh, this is why they're doing it. Yeah.
And you speak from the perspective both as a sister, as a sibling, and also as a mother. And you speak also of this wanting to figure out the why. Yeah. And sometimes the why, you start blaming yourself. What advice would you wish someone would have given you as a mother in the middle of going all of this? What would you have wanted to have heard?
I think I would want to have heard that other mothers and fathers are going through the same thing, that I wasn't alone, that there was also hope. Because sometimes when you're seeing my brother, my son, he got very heavily into drugs, using synthetic drugs. And when I saw him for the last time, he was having a psychosis. We ended up having to take him to the hospital because he was running down the road. We had to drag him in the house and get him into the shower because he thought he was burning. And all I could do was, I just felt so powerless. I didn't know how to help my son. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know what drug he was taking. Now that he's doing better, he was able to tell me the different drugs he was using. But at the same time, I remember going down the park trying to chase him, and I just felt ashamed. Like, what a horrible mother I was. Like, and I knew I wasn't a bad mom, but that thought came to my mind, like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. Like, what did I do wrong? And then wanting to help my son and not understanding why he was doing drugs. I didn't understand. Then my other thought was, is he going to take his life? Am I going to see my son again? Is he going to be am I getting my son back?
You carried a lot of fear.
Yes.
Did that ever go away?
Yes. Like right now, I feel like my son, and for us, it was a non-traditional way. My son took a lot of prayer and fasting and just focus in our faith. And now I see total renovation in my son, but I know that not everybody's as lucky. But then in my mind, there's always this, what if he tries it again? Would he relapse? And I don't want to think that way because I want to, because I've seen other youth that I work with relapse. And I want to stay hopeful that my son will never relapse again.
As you were prepping for this, and again, what you're sharing here connects with our audience here in person, our audience online. You speak a lot in your work about stories and the importance of sharing those stories. So I have a lot of questions about those stories and all the different variations, but to start off with, story of self-compassion. Tell us why that's important.
This is a picture of my son here. This is when he was, he had just gone clean from he was already getting better in this picture. Self-compassion, this happened because when I was the first time I experienced a family member with substance use was my brother. We're only 2 years apart. And now I understand what he was doing. At the time, I didn't know what was going on, but he was using synthetic drugs and drinking. And he was experiencing, he was afraid that somebody was following him. He was also running down the street. I remember for the first time we took him to a mental health crisis place. And I remember I was there with my mom and we got him admitted. It was the first time I had been in a mental health hospital. We got him admitted and I just remember crying. I remember crying because I hated to see my brother there. And he got out and we were happy he was better. But then we didn't know about having to continue services or what else. Nobody told us what else we needed to do or how to help my brother after that. We just took him, and then he got out. We're like, okay, he's fixed. He's fine. Life is going to go back to normal. But he just went back to drinking. And then we got him into another rehab, and it became this pattern. And then my mom decided to go back to Mexico to get him into a rehab there. And we tried several rehab places. And I remember one time my brother, he said, because me and my mom thought we want my brother to be happy. And that means having a house and having a job and having children. And so we have this idea of happiness. And my brother, I remember one time he told me, why can't you love me for who I am? Why do you want to continue to change me? I'm happy this way. And that took a while, hard for me because I don't like seeing my brother using alcohol and drugs. But I had to let go. I had to support what he wanted to do. And I had to learn to forgive myself. Because every time I just thought I'm not doing enough for my brother, I'm not helping him enough. I forgot about him, and I had to learn that I had to respect his decision as much as painful it was for me, and I had to learn to forgive myself and be compassionate to myself, and know that my brother is okay and he's happy. So that's why I wanted to talk about compassion, because we're very hard on ourselves as caregivers, as family members. We carry a lot of guilt because we feel like we're not doing enough for our loved ones.
If you were to look at a future where you don't forgive yourself and you continue to think, I have to solve this problem, what does that future look like?
Miserable. You're going to feel like you're failing every single day, that you're never going to be good enough, and you're never going to do enough for your loved one.
So what's the change that needs to happen?
In ourselves. Like, we need to change. We need to know that we are doing the best that we can for those that we love, and that we also take care of ourselves. Kind of like that analogy of when you're in the plane, if you put the mask first and then you give it to someone. We have to take care of ourselves and know that, you love your family members. But for example, for me, I can't give my brother money because if I give it to him, he's going to go buy more alcohol. And so I always have to, instead I ask him, what shoes do you need, or pants, or I try to do other things because I don't want to see him use it for drinking.
So it sounds like on a practical level where there's a need, there's support, there's help, but there's also boundaries around that. And so how you've created that for your family. And we've heard about the experience for you as a mother, also as a sibling too, but there's other family members connected in there, and there are people that are also part of that journey that they're hurting. And when you're one of many caregivers in the family, what support does everyone get? Where do they turn to?
So for us, it was a challenge. My husband, he is also from Mexico like I am, but he's very traditional. He was very close to mental health at all. Like he didn't believe in it. He didn't want to be part of it. And so that took a lot of growth for him to learn that mental health is real, and that we all need help. Like other diseases, like mental health needs to be treated. And I think that was also a challenge for our family because we had the stigma of mental health, but also the cultural things and beliefs that, no, you're not crazy, or the cultural challenges that comes with mental health.
You have a couple of slides with pictures that I saw reference here, and I want to give time and space to the information that you have here that you're sharing with everyone. So walk us through what you have here for us.
So the first photo, we can go all the way to the beginning. So this is a photo of my mother we were raised by a single mom. My baby sister's in her arms, and then me and my brother. We traveled. We grew up between Mexico and United States because of the agriculture through the Brasileiro program. So every May through September, we came to California for the migrant fields. And then you can go to the next photo. And this is my dad. He died very young. I didn't have a very strong relationship with my dad. He left us when we were very little, and I think a lot of my brother's trauma was because of not having a relationship with their dad and the abuse from my stepdad, which a lot of the things that he carried from my brother was from that. But as I learned more about my dad before he passed away, I learned that he was also a heavy drinker, and that's why he died in his 50s for drinking alcohol. He had two massive heart attacks. Then the next photo. This is my brother. He is super silly. He's humor and loves to eat, and I love this photo. This is about 2 years ago when I went to go visit him. He is happy, and that makes me, when I see this photo, it makes me remember that my brother is happy, and he just wants to be loved. And I try to do what I can to help him when I can, but I also, with those boundaries, like you say, because I want to make sure he stays better so I can have my brother longer. He doesn't have a good relationship with his children. And then on the next photo, this is my family. These are my children. My son, Fernando, sitting, and my other son, Benjamin, and then my daughters and my little guy, Emiliano. But my two sons, Benjamin, the one with the red, he's the one that started using drugs when he was in middle school. And when he was 17, he left my home. And I felt, I just felt ashamed because I didn't understand why he had left at such a young age. And he wouldn't listen. Like, it didn't matter what we told him. They get to the stage where they know best. We don't know anything. And he started hanging out with the wrong crowd and doing, got pretty heavy into drugs. And every night I was just waiting for the phone call. I got the police came knocking at my door. It was scary because every time they came, I thought they were going to tell me something had happened to him. And it was always like just praying at night that night my son would be taken care of and that he wouldn't die or hurt someone. That was my prayer. He wrecked a couple cars, was in prison, jail a couple times. And we tried many things, many programs, took him to a couple rehab facilities, but if they want to leave, they can leave. And that was a hard part for me to understand. Like, why does he have a choice? Don't let him leave. But it was challenging because we would take him there, but then he could leave, and then he would go right back into the substances. And then my other son, he became a professional soccer player, and he started drinking heavily. So he just actually has been in recovery for about 6 months, and so we're really happy to see that. This is Benjamin. About 6 months after getting being in recovery. And I think something else that helped us was, because there's a lot of naysayers when you're going through this. Well, you must have done something wrong, or you don't have enough faith, or you're not praying enough, and so the naysayers sometimes discourage you because then you begin to question your parenting style or what you did. And so we learned just to focus on our family first, and making sure my sons knew how much we loved them no matter what, that we were going to fight this together, and that we were going to love them no matter what. And we didn't, we began to close the naysayers off and just really built a very strong family support. And also through our church, it was very helpful. This is my niece. So this is my oldest brother's daughter. I recently found her last summer when I went to California. She lives homeless and she is addicted to meth. It was very, very sad for me to see that my brother's daughter is this way. But it also brought me healing to finally find her because we had lost her for a bit. And somebody had told me kind of what area they had seen her. So I had gone to this Danny's when they had told me where she kind of might be. And I was so happy to see her and hug her and tell her how much I loved her. But it was really sad to see her condition. She's the same age as my son, 30 years old, and she has hardly any teeth left. And she's also lost her daughters to CPS. So again, it's sad to see how substance use just breaks families apart. So that's just, and my brother doesn't really talk to her, and they don't have a good relationship. But he can't really understand because in his mind, he's, I guess also from understanding how the disease works, in his mind, he behaves like a high school student, like a high school. So he's still stuck in high school. So even when he sees me, it's like he's back in high school. So he's not my almost 50-year-old brother. Yeah, and I just put here how to understand the shame and guilt that we go through, the stigma, the hidden pain. I think the hardest part for me was always thinking that today's going to be the day I'm going to get a bad news, or tonight when and every time the police called, and you just waiting for the worst news a parent can ever imagine. And this is my son Benjamin got married. And so going through, doing really well. And then we're just so proud. But this is my family. And we're still just trying to heal together and support each other and share the hope that it is possible to make it through, I guess, the end of the tunnel.
Dr. Mercado, let me say that it is, again, an honor and a privilege to hear you share not just professional advice, what's out there, programs that are being built, but also the personal story and the generations and the pictures. And as they say, a picture is worth 1,000, or a picture's worth 1,000 words. And you've done that. And this isn't normal. Right? People don't normally talk so openly about the things that hurt most in their personal life. And why don't people do this, what we're doing here tonight, more often?
I think because it's painful. In order, but once you go through the pain and the more you tell the story, the more you begin to heal and the more you begin to connect with others. And then you feel like you're not alone, that other parents, we're all going through this together. So, yeah.
Well, we're going to do what we usually do on Monday nights, which is to open up for questions. And so we're going to have someone running across the crowd here with a microphone. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll have someone run with a microphone here. For those online, feel free to submit. If we don't catch your question today, just know that we'll also be responding and coming back to those questions. And as that's getting prepared and we got questions coming in, you said something that stuck in my mind, which is the last picture of your family. And it was this is my family today. And you said it with a smile. And you also said, and we are still healing. So there's a lot of people that feel like if it's not perfect, that I'm not doing it right, or we've hit recovery, but it has to stay this way. But you said still healing. So tell me more why you use that phrase.
Because there's still, a lot of times we don't say everything, especially among the family. And so I feel like we're always, when we all sit together at the table, there's still things that come up. And the more for example, my son will share the story of, the last day that he had an episode. And then we all share pieces of where we were and how we each felt. my son says, like, I never imagined I made you feel this way. I'm so sorry. And so there's a lot of forgiveness that has to happen within each other, because my son, he tells us, I didn't realize I was making you feel this way. And so it's healing for each of us that he recognizes now. And also for us, like, what could we have done better? What did we say? Or so learning from that experience and forgive each other. Yeah.
We have questions in the crowd here. I saw a hand go up earlier. And so we'll work the microphone here. Great.
So what an amazing story. I'm kind of curious with your own family, and you had a large family, and as you're going through this in the family, how did you take steps maybe to take care of the rest of the family through that experience? And you just mentioned you talk openly at dinner, but how did you talk to the rest of the family about what you were going through at the time?
Yeah, I think so. What I didn't want to do was lie, because I had seen what that had done with some of the students that I had. And so I always kept it very honest with my other kids, with my daughters, when they say, well, what's happening with my brother? We would tell them, this is what's happening, and this is why, because we didn't want to try to say, oh, he's in vacation somewhere. We didn't. We were always very open about what was happening and why they were going through that. And when we would go visit my brother, we would take all the other kids so they could see that we were all there because we all loved my son and my brother. And we'll all go visit, when we go to Mexico, we go visit my brother, and they all know what uncle's going through, and making sure they don't go buy uncle a beer if he tells them to go buy a beer, because we like to keep those conversations open. And then I also wanted to make sure that, and that was another thing, because I would always tell my kids, like, if you feel like smoking or drinking, tell me, and I'll go buy a pack of cigarettes so we can both try it, so you know what it is. I'd rather know than be naive about it. So that's why it caught me by surprise when my son started doing these other drugs, and I didn't understand it. That's why I was very confused, because I had always had this open conversations with my boys. But they explained to me that that's what you do to fit in. Like, they were doing it because it wasn't a trauma, but that's what you do to be cool. You take these pills, and then little by little, they begin to get addicting, and then they're hard to leave. And then they begin to sell it to get more. Yeah.
We have time for another question, if there's another question out in the crowd.
First of all, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. Tell me a little bit more about your brother, and I'm assuming something which is very dangerous, but you never talk about his sobriety, and that he became, he got out of that or above it, left that behind. It sounded like you talked about he's still maybe battling some of that. So your family, your children, his nephews, his nieces, they adjusted their situation so that they weren't harmed or hurt or hurting him. And it sounds like y'all dealt with that and still dealing with it. If I'm misunderstanding, correct me. If not, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we tried different rehab programs both in the United States and then in Mexico. And my brother, every time he would come out, he would just go right back into drinking. And that's why we decided to not try anymore, because my brother said that he wanted us to love him the way he was. And that was really hard for us to accept that, because we wanted him to be fully recovered. But my brother said, I don't care how many times you take me, when I get out, I'm going to go right back, because that's what I want to do. And my mom still has a really hard time with that. She goes to Al-Anon classes to help her, and a lot of guilt, and we all try to help, but we finally decided to just love my brother the way he is and give him that choice, because the more we force it, the more we actually get him to go back to it. And that's the part that was hard for us, because we don't want to see our brother like this, but we also have to respect that's his decision.
And Dr. Mercado, as we wrap up this time here with you, if you were to imagine that everyone in this room walks away with just one thought, one idea, or one resource, what is it that you would want them to walk away with?
To have compassion to yourself about your family member and love them. I know it's hard at times, but don't give up. Love your family. Show them the love that you have. Don't give up. And also, when they don't want to change or you tried everything, be compassionate to yourself and forgive yourself. I do what I call forgiveness walks. So whenever those thoughts come to my mind, I just go on a walk and forgive myself for those thoughts and for feeling like I'm never enough.
I've got to say, for all the years that I've been working as a professional, I've never heard anyone suggest a forgiveness walk and to just allow that to leave. And that's a powerful way to wrap up. Dr. Mercado, again, for the time that you have and the programs that you're developing, the impact that you have on the community, we're very grateful for you to share your time here and both professional and personal stories here with us. So thank you for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And for those here in the audience and for those online, for anyone watching the video later, just know that this is a space where we intend to build community, a space where we intend to educate and share information and also provide hope through support. So if you know someone that could benefit from this, we ask that if you're online, share this message, like us, follow us. Please make sure that this isn't a secret that's held here. I think if there's anything we've learned is the value in being able to share our stories. And so with Dr. Mercado's permission, please share the story that you're hearing here, the stories that have been shared in the past couple of weeks, and the stories to come. So we'll be back here at the same time next Monday. We are the CARES program. That's Caregivers and Relatives Empowered for Support for individuals with substance misuse. And we are here to, again, provide that support into the community. So join us next Monday. We'll have another speaker next week. So go online, find out who that mystery speaker is going to be. And I'm sure they're very nervous. That's your only clue. Nervous who's going to be next here. So, but join us and invite someone so that we can build community together. And as we wrap up every week, we'll say if you're new to this space, if this is your first time, either watching the video afterwards, watching live, or being here in person, welcome home. Thank you all. See you next Monday.